and I think this only proves that Giannis needs to win his third MVP. Giannis only has 2, and the unfortunate reality is I said in a video before that I would talk about the MVP candidates, and today we're here to talk about Giannis, which I feel like we just did, but what is there not to say? Because I have a lot to talk about and actually breaking down his MVP case. Like the last video when we did it with Jokic, I'm going to break down a couple of the reasons why I think he could win and actually see if there's a real possibility of it. Now, unlike the Jokic MVP video, I do have a special guest that's going to be making an appearance in this video. We're going to talk about that later on. I want to start with the Milwaukee Bucks because the Bucks are having a pretty good season this year. For the longest of time, it seemed like the Eastern Conference was primarily dominated by the Boston Celtics. It seems like every video I've talked about the East for even a brief second, I've always said Boston was the #1 team. Boston was the #1 team, but I think that's starting to change. While Boston is still an amazing team, I feel like Milwaukee is starting to overcome them. At one point, I think the Celtics were first place by like 5 games, but now it's only a 1.5 game difference. Now, unlike some teams in the West, it's not because Boston's losing. In fact, they're on a 4-game win streak. It is, however, probably because the Bucks are on a 10-game win streak. Yes, a 10-game win streak. And why are the Bucks on a 10-game win streak? I mean, they made some moves to the trade deadline, but that's definitely not why. Of course, the team was already good. No one's really trying to dispute that, but it's probably because Giannis is having the best month of basketball. From the span of January 25th to right about now, Giannis is having the best time of basketball that I've seen. With MVP candidates, we like to look at certain runs, and I think this is one of those runs that we're going to be studying. During this 2 to 3 week span, Giannis had 2 50-point games, 1 40-point, and loads of 30-point games. In fact, during this time, he's only scored under 30 points in 1 game, but he almost had a 24-point triple-double, so I'm not that mad. Now, a lot of you probably didn't know this, especially because even the media is not recognizing it. Also, I just found this out, but Derek White just won the Player of the Week over Giannis, which I know it's Player of the Week, no one really cares. Like, regardless, this is only a small amount of the disrespect I'm talking about. I mean, speaking of disrespect, I made a whole video about that, which by the way is doing very well. Thank you guys so much. Now, getting back on track, what I think is interesting is that Milwaukee plays Boston literally tomorrow, which actually is going to be the same day you're seeing this. If Milwaukee can win this game, I think it will show people that they're the best team in the Eastern Conference, but also they're going to be almost in first. I think because Boston has 1 more win, they're technically going to be ahead, but they're going to be like right there for first place. And mind you, this is in the Eastern Conference, which in my opinion has been a lot more competitive compared to the West. Now, granted, this might change because of the trade deadline, but as of right now, I think this still stands. Now, the reason I bring up Milwaukee is because as a team, you need to be good. You need to have team success in order to win the MVP. And some people might bring up Jokic from years past and be like, oh, well, they were barely a playoff team. They were a play-in team. How come he won it? Well, to be honest, I think it's just because injuries happen. I don't see a situation where someone makes the play-in and they win MVP. Before Jokic, the only player I could think of that was on a team that didn't have that great of a record was Russell Westbrook, but he averaged like a triple-double. And then he did it the following year and they still had a bad record, so no one really cared, to be honest. Regardless, I think winning still matters and it should play a very big factor. Giannis's scoring ability is something we also need to discuss because I feel like it's kind of going under the radar. The last time I talked about Giannis, he was barely averaging 30 points per game, but now he's averaging about 32 points per game. And it probably has to do with the fact that Giannis has been on one of the craziest weeks of scoring we've ever really seen. I've said this for the longest of time, but if Giannis can develop a jump shot or at least be more aggressive, I think he's going to be pretty scary. And of course, Giannis isn't a sharpshooting 3-point shooter. However, he is someone who can take shots and be somewhat efficient. He's also not a terrible mid-range shooter, which is something that I'm glad he's been able to add to his arsenal. Now, let me say this, and I think this is pretty obvious, but Giannis is the most dominant player on the offensive side. Now, there is a difference between the most dominant and the best player on offense, even though I'd make a pretty strong argument that Giannis can be both of them. When I use the term dominant, he's someone that is very big on the offensive side. I mean, he's what, like 6'10"? He's a force in the paint. You're not really stopping Giannis on defense, especially when he's driving, especially when he's moving like a point guard that's in a big man's body. Giannis is more dominant than any other offensive player. And if you want to go off stats, well, Giannis has been a lot more dominant at the rim compared to other years. Last year, Giannis was averaging about 9.3 shots to the rim. This year, it's about 12.2. Last year in pick and rolls, he took about 1.8. This year, about 3.4. And drives, it's the same situation, about 11.7 drives compared to 14.4. Now, as much as scoring is very important and the offensive side of the ball as a whole is very important, there's something else we need to discuss. In this video so far, we talked about the Bucks and their success, and we also talked about Giannis on the offensive side of the ball. But I would say one of the biggest differences that separates Giannis from other MVP candidates is his diversity. Not only is he amazing on the offensive side, but he's amazing on the defensive side. But I'm not going to be telling you about the defensive side. In fact, I brought on a really good friend of mine. WillSoTrill is an amazing NBA YouTuber who makes really high production videos that I highly recommend you check out. And fun fact, just like me, he loves spreading positive Giannis propaganda. So without further ado, take it away, Will.
Hey man, WillSoTrill checking in, leader of GCM, Giannis Cockmunchers. Now, not only is Giannis and his dominance being ignored offensively, but so is his defense. It's a real travesty. In the last Defensive Player of the Year ladder by the NBA, Jaren Jackson Jr. was the leader, and I want to compare his defensive numbers to Giannis. Jaren is defending 14.2 shots per game, 6.2 of those go in. That's a 43.5% defensive field goal percentage. That is elite. Giannis, on the other hand, he's defending 12.7 shots per game, 5.3 of those go in, 41.8% defensive field goal percentage, even more elite. Jaren has opponents shooting 5.2% lower than their average. Giannis has opponents shooting 6.9% lower than their average. In the paint, Jaren is allowing a 48.5 defensive field goal percentage, and his opponents are shooting 14.8% lower than their average. In the paint, Giannis is allowing 49.3%, with opponents shooting 15.7% lower than their average. On threes, Jaren allows 42.1% while Giannis allows 32.5%. Judging by the fact that Giannis has nearly identical defensive numbers to Jaren, really even better, he shouldn't be that much lower on the latest Defensive Player of the Year ladder. Surely. I mean, do y'all see this shit? A player that has better numbers when it comes to impacting shots than the Defensive Player of the Year favorite on their ladder isn't even being considered top 10 right now. Be fucking serious. They have his teammate who has worse numbers on this list at number 2. There are people that genuinely believe that Brook Lopez is a better defender than Giannis. You need to seek help. Brook is a drop coverage big only. Giannis can play whatever role he wants defensively at the absolute highest level of basketball. 30% of NBA teams can run whoever offense on that drop coverage shit by Brook. We have seen this in the playoffs. Kevin Durant turned Splash Mountain into Ass Mountain. He was getting cooked every fucking play. But hey man, I guess we just gotta get used to this. Giannis will never be considered for a regular season award ever again by the media, and we're just gonna have to wait until the postseason for him to drop that Greek meat to be reminded of who Giannis Antetokounmpo is. And I want y'all to remember this: do not be a dork valuing spreadsheets over banners.
Will is 100% right, and I think this only proves that Giannis needs to win his 3rd MVP. Giannis only has 2, and the unfortunate reality is I don't know if he can win his 3rd. And it's not because he's not doing enough, it's because we're expecting so much out of him, and yet no one wants to talk about when he's doing more than what he's told. Regardless of that, I wouldn't be surprised if Giannis doesn't win, again, because people expect so much, and when he does it, they don't care. But yeah, that's the end of the video. Now, if you guys did not know, this is actually a part of a series. The last video was about Jokic. Comment in the comment section below who you think should be in the next video. Not gonna lie, I'm definitely pushing towards Kevin Durant or Joel Embiid, depending how KD plays throughout the rest of the season. Also, if you guys could check out Will, I'd very much appreciate it. Again, he makes amazing content, and he has a lot of stuff cooking up right now, trust me. Also, shout out to my Valentine's Day 2-for-1. If you guys want to see the last Giannis video I made, I'll put it on the screen right here. I know I made it only like 3 videos ago, but I would still recommend you check it out. Happy Valentine's Day, and I'll see you guys later. Leave a like on this video, subscribe to the channel, and don't listen to casuals. Especially ones that say Giannis shouldn't win MVP. Fucking idiots.